What is up, everyone? DJ Anubis here with you on the Metal Tavern Radio podcast with another episode of the Kaiju Spotlight. Here with my good friend and fellow collaborator, Jedi Grand Velle, as I go through and I choose different kaiju to focus on. This is a bit of an unusual one. It's a movie called Kronos from 1957, which is a black and white science fiction film, which I will say, though, I've seen this twice in the last 24 hours. And the first time I watched it, I found something online which was in color. So I actually watched it both in color and in black and white. Mm-hmm. So I had a chance to do that. I don't know if Jedi's ever seen the color version or not, but let's just start by saying, this was one of your picks when we went through to decide, which, kaiju you wanted to focus on for yourself and choose. So what made you choose this film and why?
Well, I feel like this is one of those unique kind of films that rarely, because it gets overlooked a lot. I mean, I know for myself, when I first heard about it, and this was years ago, I was kind of like, this is kind of an interesting film here, and it's taking place back during the Cold War days when they were mass producing these kind of films, and they were coming out like it was basically a factory. That's what Hollywood is, it's basically a factory, produces, stuff that's like sell it to the public, and if they accept it or not, it's like that's on them. But this one in particular stood out more to me, besides films like the Tarantula or like say the Giant Claw, or even the Creature from the Black Lagoon. I mean, yeah, these are films that we know and well know about because they came out at a time which were, like I say, during the Cold War, and like I say, films like Godzilla dealt with all these kind of things because of atomic, power and atomic waste and atomic mishandling and everything. But this one in particular, it looked like something that was far more gratifying in terms of that. It's not exactly what you call typical kaiju film. In fact, I wouldn't even say it's considered kaiju. It's just that it deals with something that will become kaiju size, and it does the typical thing that all these films back then were doing, which was like it grows to a certain size. Once it gets to a certain size, it terrorizes the land and the people that it's bombarding. So when I got a chance to buy it, back in, I think it was like late 2000s, I gotta say, I mean, it'll probably be all right. I mean, maybe I'll, look at it and it's not going to be so, gratifying. But to my surprise, I watched it and it was kind of like, this is not what I was expecting. In which, if you think about it, look at the many films back then, especially since they were in black and white too. I think that's the charm of it too, knowing that they were in black and white. It's like we're mass producing these things. We ain't got to use color. It's up to the audience how they respond to it. It really has something about it where it's like it starts from this point of startup. It starts from the A point, and then it goes straight to Z. And you think like the Z is not going to be that impressive. It's like, no, the Z is probably more impressive than you think it is, because that's the thing. It starts from unexpected places, and then it grows into this, massive situation where it's like, how did that happen, And this particular film deals with something that's which is another thing. It deals with an alien, if you think about it, it's still with something from outer space, which is something I think they didn't do a lot in the 50s, at least not in the in Hollywood. In Hollywood, it was more, generated from where it was from the origins of Earth. For like I said, coming from space was a little different. And I'm wondering, could outside forces like Japan have influenced films like this? Because this film, like I say, it came out at a time when films like The Mysterians, which is a Japanese production, and various others that deal with something coming from outer space. It could have been coincidence or anything like that, but I think at the same time, I feel that this film is one of those rare films where it's like we're dealing with space invasion, but we're doing it in a small relevant kind of not Independence Day, not the V, the lizard people. We're doing it like small and content. When I say small content, I mean send down one, I come in peace kind of situation, and we'll see where it goes from there. And surprisingly, when you see what the danger of it is, it's like, okay, we gotta get rid of this shit. We gotta get this thing out of here.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
So this film, directed by Kurt Neumann, stars Jeff Morrow, Barbara Lawrence, John Emery, and George O'Hanlon. And it also makes it note to say that, since this film's release, it has been widely praised for its above-average storyline and its far-sighted portrayal of the consequences of overconsumption of both natural and man-made resources. And it's interesting how you mentioned how they didn't really mess with too many stories from outer space. However, it is also interesting to me, and I don't know if you saw it the same way. When I'm watching this, I got both not just like vibes of The Thing from the Other World, which ended up being a remake called The Thing by Carpenter because of the possession of the alien within the human beings, but also a little bit of War of the Worlds type thing going on here, where as we get to the end of the movie, they have to start using their own ingenuity and as well as like basically forcing their own interpretation back onto the alien being to destroy it. So like I just kind of saw some of these other influences from movies before that actually dealt with some of the science fiction, which was kind of cool about this film. And I don't know if you saw some of those similar ideas in there either.
Surprisingly, when you bring that up, actually I do. I mean, I knew there was some kind of influence, but I couldn't really say which one. But I can definitely see the War of the Worlds, and I definitely can see the Thing from Another World, because it's like, yeah, I mean, it's even though that one, but that's the thing I think you bring out a good point about. It's like there is something of an underlying message embedded in this film. I mean, it's true that these films were done quickly. Hell, they were done on a shoestring budget. I mean, they was like shot maybe like I say maybe like a month, maybe even not that long, and done in a specific way. It was like, we're telling a story, but we're not going to use a lot of, as you mentioned before, resources in order to finish this out. But it's effective. Yeah. But I can see that, because it really does tie into the notion that we're doing all these things. I mean, this thing is doing all these things, but we as this particular carbon-based units, we are our own worst enemy ourselves, and it's like the thing. And I don't think a lot of people will look at that way. I mean, I'm thinking that now, looking at it that way, it's like, it's funny how most people, or at least the average person, doesn't look at certain things like that. They don't look at the message you're saying, like, we need to show that we need to be more aware about what we do and how we consume things, because eventually we will make this planet pretty much a dead one. I mean, like I say,
yeah.
The fact that Godzilla, I keep going back to him, but I mean, he's a fine example. Godzilla is nothing more than an interpretation of us as human beings. We're the real monsters when it comes to our own fates. We're the real ones who create, devastation, create, such havoc. And in a way, this movie is doing kind of the same, although it's saying that we got to learn to stop being so over-consuming things, when we can just like, okay, we can't be greedy like this. We can't be doing all these things. If we do, we're eventually going to, like I say, we're going to run out, and eventually this planet will become, like I say, a dead planet. And in this thing here, it's not. And if you think about it, it's not really doing something to, like Godzilla before. It's not really doing something to, that when I say damage the Earth, it's not doing this to, being a villain. It's actually doing for survival. And that's the whole point of that. I mean, this is nothing more than a creature of habit. It's instinctual. It's letting you know that I'm consuming so I can make sure my planet that I come from has the resources to live on themselves. But again, a lot of people won't really read that underlying message there, because they feel like, I don't really see it that way. Well, you gotta look with your blind eye and realize like this movie has more potential than just, oh, we're gonna destroy the earth. This is the bad guy. We gotta get rid of it. It's like, no, it's more to it than that. And I feel like that's something, in a way, films like this back then, these B movies, really did well in terms of it's done cheaply, it's done effectively, but there's something being said that they're trying to say to help the audience realize, like, look at us and see what we're doing, because we're doing kind of the same thing with these things that we're showing in the films, are doing. We're causing these kind of tropes and whatever, going on.
And that's sort of like the great thing about movies like this in the past, because this is one of those movies you would go to the drive-in to see along with something else. And we talk about like a lot of modern day filmmaking, and so take like Avatar. You can watch Avatar and you can see a couple of things. You can see a bunch of blue people fighting monsters and fighting each other, or you can see an allegory to Native Americans and how they might have been rushed out from the times of Columbus and stuff like that. So, but I like it when movies like this, they just kind of give you the whole science fiction monster aspect of it, but then deep under, if you want to sit there and analyze it, you can, but you don't necessarily have to. And so I like that, because nowadays you'll get movies where they're trying to reverse it. They want to kind of preach to you about this, and this, and then they kind of lose the entertainment value of the movie itself. So I really appreciate that Kronos, at least on the surface, just said, hey, yeah, we're just this crazy sci-fi, monster movie. But if you sat and, like you said, look and kind of break it down, you can sit there and say, well, yeah. And then even now they say the movie's being reflected upon, being forward thinking about the dangers of overconsumption. So I like that you're able to kind of do that without being batted over the head with it.
That's the thing. I think that's the thing. I mean, it's nothing wrong with giving a message. Nothing wrong with that. It's like you say, but do it in a subtle way where it's like you don't lose the people's entertainment value. They don't lose their eye for what they're watching. Because, like I say, give you a wonderful example. Big budget film like Avengers: Infinity War. What is this breaking down to? What are we really saying about it? Okay, we're trying to fight a person who's trying to pretty much say take away half the universe and kind of help it a little bit. Basically, what it's saying is it's like this person. Okay, what he's doing is in a way bad. Okay, we get that, but why is what he's doing bad? Why do we seem like it's bad? He's not doing this to be bad. He's doing this because it's like he sees the danger of what this overconsumption and everything that's finite is. He's like, the resources are finite. This is finite. It's like he's not doing this to gain some kind of glory or whatever. It's like that's real villains. That's one thing I could say, especially now. Real villains are not that archetype that we see in the past, like the twinkling mustache, kind of like, this is what we're doing. It's like, no, it's more like this individual has a motivation to where they're doing it to actually say, like, I'm doing this because I feel this would be better for human. I mean, not so much human, but just entities in general in existence to live on in a peaceful society, in a peaceful way where it won't damage or take away anything else from someone else, But like I say, a lot of people won't look at it that way because it's like, man, this is a pure action picture. This is so action. There's so much entertainment. We're enjoying it, but it's that subtlety that, because I know for myself, this is what's so crazy. Myself, I could see that without having to blink, trying to see it. I mean, because I'm not trying to see it, because I can actually see it with my, that kind of thought process. Because I go into a film, it's like, it's a typical, I mean, you go see a film that's pretty dumb, it's like you still get some enjoyment out of it. But if you see something and it's like right there, where it's like, okay, you have the film, but then it's like something's right here that others won't see, and then there's something right here that is like wow, that's saying something too. But you see it all in together, and you realize like, wow, I never thought of it that way. Because there are things in films that people describe that I didn't see, that they actually see, but I didn't notice. And I was like, wow, it's like that's the thing. It's good to know that others can see something that you don't see, but you can refer to them. But what you see is like, oh, I would never have known that, And like I say, Kronos is one of those films, even though it's low budget, it's whatever, it's there, but it's like you say, it's not being thrown in your face. It's not being thrown, just like, oh, we're gonna slap you with this. It's like, no, it's subtle, but it's gratifying too because it's still entertaining the primary audience. And that's all.
Yeah, because when you look at like King of the Monsters, 2019, so I still love that film, but you can see where the message in there, it was a little bit imbalanced because they wanted to talk about the environment and all the other stuff that's going on. But then you look at like -1. Now that has something more to do than Godzilla. It has more to do with the human element, people dealing with PTSD and all this other stuff. So the way that those two movies approach it are way different. And really, -1 was much stronger because it gives you the fun of Godzilla, but then it also lets you go back and reanalyze the human characters and what's going on there with that. And again, that's what I like about this film is that it's not going to try to preach to you about, the dangers of using up energy, but in the storyline, it does play out that way, and it kind of lets you think about it and say, oh yeah, if this really happened, this would suck.
Right. Yeah, and it's a good thing you bring that up about -1 and King of Monsters. Like I said, King of Monsters, I like for what it is. I feel that they were pushing certain things too much. I mean, maybe for me, maybe because like I say, of the over advertising. That's again, we're going back to overconsumption. They overconsume with the advertising, giving you too much, and I feel like you should have done more subtle ways of advertising. That way it would have been more gratifying for the people who went to go see it and realize who are not kaiju fans, who are not tight, who probably never heard of King Kong, probably never heard of Rodan, probably never heard King Ghidorah. Give them a little taste and let them decide if they want to, but the film should have done better than what it was. But again, going back to the message, like, yes, we see what it's saying, but it's like, okay, you should have been more, because even I have to say, I saw that, but it's like, okay, you're kind of forcing it in my face. Like, it's like slapping in the face. Like, no, that's, and like I say, and I look, and I won't take away from this gratification, because I can say watching it, it was like so gratifying seeing, that movie.
It's still one of my favorites, but obviously for more of the creature designs and the animated way they got the animals to work. So as far as like a film and seeing your favorite monsters up there, it's amazing. It's an amazing film. But again, we always kind of debate the difference between American storylines versus the Japanese ones, and Japanese tend to have a much stronger approach to it because it means a little bit more to them on different levels than it does to us as Americans. So,
and I think, and then I'm going to say this real quick, and I think that's probably what it is, because they've gone through the tragedy of certain things. I mean, true enough, they were part of the so-called problem where they were doing this and that, but they did have to suffer the wrath of the Western world, and they took it upon themselves. Like, okay, well, this is the only way we can express this. But that's one thing I love about Japanese filmmaking, especially if it's dealing with something not so much dealing with drama. I'm talking about taking something that's fantasy or sci-fi or even horror and letting it's like, there's a reason why we're showing it or expressing it this way. That's probably why I know for a fact when you see a lot of the films of those, well, even now, even if, like I said, -1 included, you watch those films, you realize like it's saying, okay, we're seeing a big creature, it's doing something, whatever, but they're basically saying it's like, we went through something, but the outside world, you don't have no idea what we went through. You don't have what our people, our family, our friends, you know, a loved one, whatever. You have no idea what they went through to get from where we were then to now. Because otherwise, if you did, you would understand why we speak in. Because if you really watch these films, watch any of these Takusatsu kaiju films, really watch them. They do such a subtle way of putting the message there, where it's like it's so subtle. Someone had to slap you in the face, you know, had to really like not put a cinder block to your face to let you know it's like that's what it's saying, you know. Although 9 out of 10 you won't get it, but they do it in a way where it's telling you this is what we went through. This is what we're really saying. This is what we're really putting out there, and it fits the narrative well. And the story is so well put that, you know, like I said again, that's why I love, you know, Japanese cinema, or basically Asian cinema, because even the Chinese, you know, Korean, you know, they basically do a great job of telling crazy, outlandish stories, but there's some underlying message that's being broadcast.
Yeah.
Most
Yeah,
people.
I think exactly to like Train to Busan, like just as a zombie film, it has so much more going for it than just the horror and the zombies. Like there's just so much, the acting, the storylines, it's just amazing work. And so they're really kind of starting to leave America in the dust when it comes to, you know, movie making and creating thoughtful stories that even in the horror genre, or even any other genre, they just are having a ball over there because they sort of get it. They know how to balance it out a little better. We still have good films over here, but it just doesn't really seem to compare sometimes, especially in this particular area of genres and stuff like that we like so much. But go ahead, for anybody that's never seen this film, kind of give a breakdown what this film is about and kind of how it plays out in the story.
Well, basically, as I say, it's a science fiction film. It's a typical, you know, sci-fi kind of narrative, and it deals with, you know, like I say, because this is the time where the Cold War was going on, and you could say that Kronos is nothing more, since it's made in America, nothing more than an analogy of the Russians, and more or less, because let's be honest, we know that, you know, that was a scare, that was the thing that was implanted in people's minds, like, you know, Americans are good, Russians are bad. It's like, what you should be saying is human beings are just these scared little rabbits, and you're gonna be so untrustworthy of something that's like you don't know who to trust. So, but no, the film is set in Los Angeles. Well, not really Los Angeles. It will land in Los Angeles, but it takes place where it's like I say, it's very simple. We see this glowing entity, you know, come down from space. We don't know where it's coming down from the heavens or whatever. And you mentioned before how in John Carpenter's The Thing, it possesses or takes over, consumes somebody. This thing pretty much consumes, not so much consumes, it possesses bodies, instances them, you know, like this. And it's all electrical. That's the one thing it's more of a bioelectrical entity, and it takes over people's bodies. But when you see it, you see that it's able to, you know, transfer its essence from one conscience to another. And when it gets to the person or prey where it's trying to go to, it gets there, and it's basically saying, you know, like, hey, we're going to use this person to call up this other particular entity to come down. So basically, the entity consumes this guy, just a random individual driving on the road. It gets this guy, and it goes
I kept
to
thinking of Richard Dreyfuss from Close Encounters of the Third Kind, just driving along in that truck. That's just kind of me him a little bit, but
and who knows, you know? But who knows? That look, let's be honest with you. Who knows if Spielberg was influenced a little bit by this film, you know, because he grew up as a child watching these films, so it wouldn't be too far-fetched if he did get influenced by that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, because it's on a desert road, it's being, you know, it's like just random thing. And you got to remember, this is the time when there wasn't too many spotlights, spotlights on the road because it's the desert. It's like that's a waste of resources. Just keeping it. You got to use your headlights. If you don't have headlights, you're screwed going down the road at night. But yeah, this entity pretty much is able to transfer its conscious from one being to another, and it was inevitably it gets in touch with Dr. Elliot, who's running this research center that's like I say, I think it's near California, somewhere is in California, something like that, because it's basically all these films were filmed in California, basically, But he gets in touch with the main person that he needs because he's in authority, and we're introduced to different characters like Jeff Morrow's character, Barbara Lawrence's character, and the other. And these are just research scientists, but they're astronomers who study big, massive, or whatever bodies in heaven, and make sure that they don't collide with Earth, Well, the character of Jeff Morrow's character, he discovers that one particular item that's in space that he's been kind of studying, notices that it's moving. It's like, okay, this is moving in a strange way because regular bodies, meteors, comets, or anything like that, they have a distinctive way of moving. And he notices it's like, no, this is not moving like, just random movement in space here. It's moving with intelligence. So when you notice that something is moving without something motivating it, it's like, yeah, this is not good. So this is where the movie starts to, and I got to say, this is a slow burn movie, but once it gets going, once it gets started, it's on a run. You can't stop it. So Dr. Jeff Morrow's character, in fact, let me stop saying his name. I mean, I want to say his character's name.
Gaskell.
Dr. Gaskell. He's saying that I'm so because it's burning his brain. That's like, I want to try to find out what this is. So eventually, you discover, and when you see, and that's the funny thing, when you see the shape of the craft, that's, or I might as well say craft, when you see the body that it looks like the best description I can say is like two bowls put together, and it's it's like it's
like a light bulb inside or something,
right? Something like that. And it's like but it's kind of funny that you think something more exotic, something more rambunctious in seeing this, but to me it works. It works because it's not over the top. It's very simple. It's something that, it's like, say, it's like, hey, let you know that this is something that's coming to do harm to Earth in a way that if it crashes, it's going to do some damage. But anyway, Glasgow pretty much goes to Dr. Elliot, and he tells him, this thing is coming towards Earth. We need to fire some nukes at it. Fire some nukes so it can deflect it or just destroy it. Okay, we as the audience may or may not know that this is bad, but when we see that it hits it, it's like, okay, it goes down. But at the same time, we don't realize like, oh, something's really, causing, because it comes down. True enough, it's affected, but it goes down in a way where you think like it should have went down more heavily in terms of like it's supposed to make an impact. It crashes into the sea near Mexico, and at the same time this is going on, Dr. Elliot, and I should have mentioned this before, when when this entity is in the body of Dr. Elliot, you see that one moment where he looks up to the sky and he blinks his eyes doing that, and it's almost like it's signaling this thing. It's like, come down, come further, whatever. Okay. Well, when the missiles do hit the ship, whatever happens with Dr. Elliot, he just comes into a coma, whatever. and he falls, down, and he has to be taken to, to to a hospital and looked over at, psychologically. So the ship crashes, and Glasgow is pretty much telling his assistant, or love interest, and that's the thing that's another thing we had to look at these films back then. There was always a love interest going on back then. That's just how it was, that's a trope. He says that because there's this thing that they keep pushing, say, let's go to the movie. She said, let's go to the movies, go watch a movie, but it's so burnt in his brain, like it's like, I don't want to just leave this go. To me, that shows a great tenacious nature of someone. It's like, if you see something's wrong, you need to take care of it right away. But at the same time, you're ignoring the basic human nature of individuals courting. But it's he knows that.
That's the funny thing is, obviously at the time period, with men and women was different, but I was looking at it again today, watching the black and white version, and the moment that Gaskell and the girl are on the beach, and he's like, "Marry me," or she said, "Marry me," or something, and he's like, "Well, I don't know, can you cook?"
Yeah.
I just started laughing. I was like, "Oh my god!" She's like, it.
Like, hey, look, what's the best way to a man's heart is through his stomach. I mean, that only makes sense. And this is something also, I don't know if you saw it before, but if you ever see or have even heard this film, From Here to Eternity, that moment where it's a World War II film. If you see the person, these two people on the beach, they have the waves colliding over. I kind of got that vibe with them on the beach when they're saying their whatever. I don't know why I got that feeling from because like I say, films like that from the past kind of influenced this one a little bit, and you might see it, you may not, but it depends on the viewer. But like I say, they go to the beach. He says, like, I want to go down there to Mexico and see what's going on. And only him and his partner, make sure I get his name, is it Arnold? No, a Culver. Yeah, Arnold. But I guess, yeah, it's Arnold. Yeah. Him and Arnold go down there to Mexico, and they're going to study the thing, and inadvertently, Vera, pretty much, keeps certain chemicals or equipment away because she comes down there herself. It's like, hey, we got to integrate these characters in here. I mean, it's got to do this kind of thing. But anyway, when the thing is in the water, somehow it is communicating with Elliot, who's in a comatose state, and somehow the entity that's in him tells this entity that's in the water to rise up, and we see this big fog bank just cover the area where they're at. And like I say, something's going on. We don't know what's going on. We just know that it's thick with fog. This is something that Mexico has never seen, or even anywhere on the planet. Okay, the next morning, we're greeted to the figure that is what is Kronos. This big monolithic, and I think this is like way before 2001 when we say monolith, big monolith looking thing. It's like I say, I love the design. It's simple, like the ship that it came before. This thing is a very simple design. It's a block on top of a block, and it looks kind of like a 10 or 20-story building, if you think about it. If you think about the way it's shaped and everything, and it has these circular, legs that that's why I say this is why I say it's so simple that there's, like I say, there are special effects in here, but they're done in a way very, like I say, shoestring budget, but it's a very effective. Like I say, it's it has something like this circular, kind of thing underneath it that helps it to move, while these appendages, whatever I'll say appendages, they go up and down to kind of like say grab the ground as it's being, moving aside. It's kind of like tremors, it's like, how does this thing move so fast? It has these little, like appendages on its side to help it move through the matter. So this thing is no different, and we see that it has this dome-like, part of it on the top, and then we see it slowly have these like little antenna-like things come out, and it's like almost a representation of My Favorite Martian kind of thing. I mean, it's like they come out and it's like that's an indication of like, yes, this thing is from an alien world, but we don't know where it's from. And I think that's just a fun part of it. But Glasgow, he sees this and he's like, I knew it. Well, now he said this before. We see this monolith. We see that there's something's coming out of the water. So, but anyway, when he sees this, it's like, what is this thing? What is this horrific thing? So basically this thing starts going across Mexico, and not so much terrorizing, but it's causing havoc. It's causing, destruction. We see, of course, the old fashioned, cuts of films before in place. Spliced in, because believe it or not, there's a scene from, I mentioned before, the Beast from 20,000 Phantoms incorporated in his film. Believe it or not, it's other people incorporated in here. That's a joy of these films back then. It's like it's its own thing, but you got so much material before it, you can put it in there. It's like if it fits the narrative, use it. So it's destroying cities, it's destroying towns, it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. It's the typical monster trope.
Now, I don't know. I can swear, because around the time period this would be, the planes that were used look like Spitfires. Is that correct? Do they look like Spitfires here? Yeah.
You're very correct. These are Spitfires, like I say, because that's I don't want to put too much political dash on this, but Mexico was not known for its finances in terms of like America, because you got to remember, these are secondhand planes from America, because like I say, at this time you still have biplane, planes like this in America, but we're using jets now. Jets is the thing we're using. These are hand-me-down planes that they're using, which is Spitfires, and that's what they can use, and that's what they use for defense. So we see it easily destroy the planes. It fires at these guys. It fires at the other thing, but it's like it's having no effect. And there's a moment where, before all that, we see that the team lands on top of the monolith, and we realize like it's kind of hinted at, but I don't think it really explores it too much, and it just shows you how effective this thing is. We literally see it slightly drain energy from them. Not a lot, just enough, just to kind of, because you see them kind of come together like a magnet, and it's like it's draining something from them, So it's like it's giving you an indication like this thing that just takes away mechanical energy. It can actually suck the life of anything that's bio. It's electrical energy too, because we all are lightning bolts in a bottle ourselves. We're all have electrical energy in our body. So it shows that, but it doesn't really go into it too much. It lets you know that this threat is far more terrifying than you think it is. But
then they kind of figure it out. They realize that to defeat it is you're gonna have to kind of use that power against it. Like it's probably gonna be so hungry that you can overload it and it will just melt down, which is basically what kind of happens to this thing. Which is, I think the shots of the meltdown is actually pretty cool for its time. I really thought that was really awesome how they did that.
And the thing about it is, you use the simple, you use the techniques that you had at the time, but this was, as I say again, this was not a big budget film. It was like very low budget, so they had to use the techniques that. And I should mention this too. The people behind this, the guy who made the story for this film, he is actually the guy who did the movie Forbidden Planet a year before this. which is interesting because some of the subtle things in this film are incorporated in this, are taken from Forbidden Blade, like the Krell doors, how they're able to suck up energy somewhat. You can say that that's exactly what this thing is able to do. Its body is exterior body of itself sucks up energy like a sponge, and we see this in a moment where, you know, after Elliot has not so much escaped but kills the doctor that he was checking up on him, kills him, electrifies him and everything. He decides to say, well, we're going to give this thing energy like you wouldn't believe, you know, which is a killer bomb. And when Glasgow tells Elliot, you know, you need to not do this because that's literally giving this thing, you know, feeding it, you know, because it's literally something that will consume it quickly. When we see it, with the bomb, before the bomb hits, we see how the thing goes like a turtle, you know, or like an armadillo. It wraps itself up, you know, and puts its legs in and closes itself up, and it's just like a block. And I just love how when the plane comes closer and closer and just explodes into, you know, like nuclear bomb mushrooms.
Yeah.
But then we see the effectiveness of it. We see that once it blows up, we see that mushroom cloud go back down. It's a simple effect, you know, just reverse the film of the mushroom cloud, and you see that it just sucks up the energy from this. We see that it actually grows slightly. It actually grows. We see that it's like grows maybe, I say, like maybe twice its size at least. So you realize, like, not only will this thing, you know, suck up the energy that it consumes, it actually will get much bigger. So it's like, okay, whatever you throw at it, it's not going to help. You know, it's not going to do any. It's not going to do any damage. All you're doing is just giving it what it needs, what it wants.
Yep.
So to kind of continue on, we realize that Glasgow, you know, they're back at the resource center, and Elliot's there. He's still possessed, you know, and everything. And Vera kind of comes up on him, you know, it's like, because he's doing something, you know, he doesn't know what's, and he tries to kill her, but somehow Glasgow saves her from him, and, you know, he gets electrocuted, but it doesn't hurt him. It just, you know, knocks him out. This is where Elliot gives him the major information that he needs, Glasgow needs, in telling him that these are nothing more, these things, that what Kronos is nothing more than these, and not so much consuming. It's kind of funny. I mentioned something about I Come in Peace, the Dark Angel.
Yeah.
This thing does this. This guy does the same thing. It's a basic Kronos kind of kind of thing like this. It comes down in small waves, and this thing is a collector that collects energy. But he tells him, like, if it comes down, if it does what it does and it succeeds what it does, there will be more of these things coming down, basically draining, basically like wiping out Earth. You know, it's like it won't be an invasion. It'll be an extermination. You know, that's basically what it'll be. Not just you know, the life. I mean, not just mechanical life, but human life. Or even I'll go even one further. It'll suck the energy out of anything that's, you know, it's organic. You know, like I say, animals of the world and everything. It'll suck that energy out too, turn them in pretty much like this to, you know, basically like dead, just dead bodies. You know, just suck the juice out of them. You know, kind of like what you see in Life Force, with the energy is sucked out of them. It's basically it just turn them into just dust. So anyway, he tells him that, you know, these things, you know, have the wave of knowing how to turn matter into energy. Whereas, well, I think we have that energy. We have that that kind of thought process. We have the equation of turning matter into energy, but they have the other half, which is turning energy into matter, which is probably possible, but we don't have that technique of doing that. So he says, how can we ever stop? Glasgow asked him, how can we ever stop them? It's like, I don't know. Reverse the process somehow.
It's like polarity or something.
Yes, exactly. Some kind of way. We got to try something. But we see that Glasgow, not Glasgow, but the Elliot, he's been fighting this thing, and he does die, but he keeps this thing contained in the vault that doesn't keep him from getting out, so it won't infect somebody else. So at least he dies pretty much a hero, even though he's been infected and everything. So anyway, after all these things, we see that the bomb has made Kronos bigger and everything. Glasgow, Vera, and Clover, they try to figure out, well, how can we do something about it? How can we stop this thing? And this is the early version of a, one of these where Siri or Susie is going into these kind of because it's a computer, it's basically an AI, and it's trying to process these things of how to do whatever, because we don't know, we don't have an idea. But eventually Glasgow has an idea. Why don't we try to do this where we literally, because you mentioned this before, try to have it suck its own energy upon itself, basically eating itself, basically consuming its own resources of what it is. So once we get that idea, it's like, okay, we're going to try this. It's heading to a very populated area, which is, I'd say, Los Angeles. And it's funny how Los Angeles is always, back then, Los Angeles was always the go-to to the final confrontation with everything. So they get this particular plane or this fighter jet that contains this particular element, which would help reverse what Kronos is doing, and it has to get it into an area where it can actually do this without harming any other, population. So, and it's kind of, I love how this is worked out. They do it in a very realistic way, although I don't know, most of it probably just, loose jargon or just pseudoscience, how they see it, how they express it. But they managed to get this particle, this element, over Kronos. And once they do this, the effect of it starting to consume itself goes into play. And we literally see that it's like, yes, this is, as I say, this is a brilliant effect. It's so subtle, but you see this, the dome melting, way. You see that this outer shell is starting to kind of like light up, and it's like, it's suddenly just, it's like, what the, Kronos probably saying, what the fuck is happening to me? What the hell is, I'm like, oh no, it's kind of,
I was just getting ready to go in my final form. No.
Yeah, it's kind of like that moment in Spaceballs. If anyone's ever seen Spaceballs, there's a moment where the newscaster says,
to blow.
Yeah, he's well, not. Yeah, you know what? In a way, yes, it's kind of like that, But the newscaster was talking about Piece of the Hut, and he mentions like Piece of the Hut pretty much ate himself to death. This is where Kronos is doing the same thing,
Yeah.
But no, he starts to consume his own, body, consume his own self-worth for what it is, and all of a sudden, bam, he just blows up. He just destroys himself. He's gone. And it's a very, as I say again, it's a very subtle way of doing it, but it's out in the desert, it's destroyed, and we're left with this final, statement where first Clover says like, well, I can get back to Susie and you two can go to the movies. We hinted at it earlier. And then she asks like, do you think they'll send down more? Well, if they do, we'll be ready for them. Yeah. And we'll see the last shot of Kronos, just destroyed, and it ends like that. And that's the brilliance of films like this back then. they don't have some zealous kind of way of saying, okay, if it's destroyed, it's done. We ain't got to focus on a lot of, overzealous,
Yeah, no Easter eggs, no loose ends.
It's done. We're done. We're gone. It's defeated. Move on. It's like, and that was the subtlety of this, and that was the end of that film. And like, to me, films like that, and this movie, like I said, this movie is only like an hour and 18
73 minutes. That's not very long.
It's not that long, but it's a good long picture. And I've said this before, if it doesn't have you hooked, I guarantee you 30 minutes and it's boring, it's going to feel like it's dragging. But this film doesn't drag. It's very well paced. It's very well distinguished about what it's doing. And I like it for that. I like it for knowing that it's telling the story. And like I say, it's one of those space invasions that turns out to be more of an extinction level threat. And it's like I say, it's so many underlying layers about what is it really saying. It's about the Cold War. It's about the resources that we're consuming is eventually going to run out. It's all these things play out, but it's like it's not thrown in your face. It's very subtle, and I like that subtleness for what it is.
So, two things. One, would you like to see a remake of this?
Okay, I think I've asked this. I think I was asked this question before. I'll put it like this. If they were to do this, they would have to up the ante in terms of design, not so much design, but do it in a way where you still are story-wise. You got to make sure the characters are welcoming. You got to make sure the story that we're talking about has you hooked. Because see, I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm the kind of person. I'm kind of like Kronos. I suck up the story to help me say, okay, I'm invested in this and I'm enjoying this. If anyone, and I'll say this right quick, if anyone has seen this recent film, Project Hail Mary, you know what I'm talking about. You will be invested in a certain character. I won't name who it is, but when you're invested in a character and it helps you push yourself through the narrative of the story, that's a good story. And I wouldn't mind seeing that with Kronos. But as it stands, Hollywood is this kind of leech that seems to be just making the same old. And it's like, y'all can't think of something better to just produce, And seeing this as a one of those films that's a B movie, I wouldn't mind it. But again, I'm not sure what they would do with it because I feel like they would probably not give it the legs that it deserves, But then again, I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't mind.
Right. Because sometimes movies like this are just better served for the way it is, Like, I mean, obviously as you said, the design would have to be something more intriguing than what they have. So, like, looking back on this, it's okay because it works for that time period and everything, but to try to engage audiences today and this kind of thing. I mean, obviously with technology, it can look pretty cool if you do something neat, but again, you have to have faith that they would actually do a faithful adaptation of this film in the right way. So the other question I had was, what do you think is the legacy of this film? Obviously, it has like a cult status, but how do you feel about its legacy going forward?
Well, this is the fun part about this film because I'm thinking anyone like you and me who are true Kaiju fans, we're Godzilla fans for the best part. That the legacy about this film is that, and this is why. So that's why I say America is so. They did this so well back then, especially. The theme for this film is the theme that we hear for the American version of Godzilla Raids Again. If you hear, it was actually for Gigantus, the fire-breathing monster. That's what it was originally called. But if anyone's ever watched the American version of Godzilla Raids Again, the theme for the beginning of this movie, that's the theme that you hear in the beginning of Godzilla Raids Again. And I always thought, and truth be told, as a youngster, I'm thinking like, okay, the music that I'm hearing is actually the music that was produced for the film itself, and it came from the film or came from the people who made it, which is Japanese. I think this coming from them. Turns out when I finally saw this film, and it's like, wait a minute, that's what this music's coming from. That's what I'm like, these. This is where you realize, like, they didn't just use stock footage or whatever other scenes from past films. They actually used stock music to enforce and incorporate into other films, which was like, AKA, Godzilla Raids Again or Gigantus, the Five-Breeded Monsters. So the legacy of that is definitely embedded in the minds of many kaiju fans, and everything. But as far as, say, the legacy of it, it still holds in terms of that, it's still part of the, B movie status of the 50s, because that was the kind of the charm of the times, because the movies were made very slow, very quickly, very, to the point of where we're taking the story with. And I think the legacy is knowing that it was part of that moment in time. It's again, I'm being corny when I say it, but it was another example of lightning in a bottle. It's something you can't produce again, because like the 40s before it and like the 60s after it, it was its own unique signature, and you couldn't reproduce that no matter what. If you were to reproduce this again, do a remake of it, it would definitely have to fit the narrative of today, depending on if there's some people who are crazy, which I'm pretty sure there are, crazy enough to produce this. But there have been a lot of films from this time period that have been done again. I feel like come to think about it, I'm trying to think, was there any films from this time period that were remade or similar to them? I can't really think of them, but all I can say is that this film stands like anything else that was produced back then as a, certain glimmer in people's eyes, and it got made. And whether individuals who watch this feel like it's like, okay, it's what it is, they'll find that it's something pleasing to know that it wasn't trying to, make $1 million. I mean, it was there to make some money, true enough, but it wasn't there to make some grandstanding thing like this, whatever, and take over the world, be like a Star Wars, which coincidentally came out 20 years later, and be, just take over the world, and people just glance at it. It's like, no, it was this subtle way of doing things, and hoping people who are fans like myself appreciate for what it is, and it still stands the test of time. Because, like I say, me mentioning it, people like you, like Kevin Lambert, you would have never known about this film if I hadn't been the person to, speak about it, But
right,
again, that's how you spread. That's one thing I can say about films like this. When you spread the information or mention it, you never know how it's going to affect.
Well, that's why we do all this. Is
Exactly.
Information and talk about these films, and introduce each other to different films. Like, it took you a while to see The Crow, so I mean, so I mean that's the fun of it, though, because then you get to kind of, because if everyone else I've ever known has seen it, but when you haven't, I'm like, oh well, I really want to hear what you think of it, and you loved it. So that's the fun part of this. So thank you so much for doing this with me. Obviously, great choice. It was a lot of fun watching this for the first time. So let people know what you got coming up on the channel there for you.
Well, for next, hopefully, because this coming Saturday, I'm hoping to be a part of the with you and Kevin talking about probably the only viable Steven Seagal film, Under Siege. Because I mean, I'll be the first one to say, it's probably one of his better films. I mean, there are other films that I actually like at that time just as much.
Well, early Seagal films are great. No matter how you feel about the guy or films afterwards, like for a while there, he was one of the good ones. One of the good guys to watch.
But I have hopefully I'll be on that one. And next Sunday, I'm hoping to, which I know you will. I'm going to be talking about the 35th anniversary of Thelma and Louise, which I know that you yourself hopefully will be attending with me, because it's, for me, it's a love letter, because it's something special for me. Not talking about the film, but special for me in terms of how it affects me, because it was one of those films at the time. But I won't. I'll get into that when we get there.
Which I will say is I've never watched it all the way through. So
really, oh well, hey, this will give you a chance to do it
again.
This will
be a first time for this one too.
But later, that's pretty much all for this month. But the next month, beginning, I will be have something right on the back burner, which is oh yes, that's right, attending another thing, a collab with you and Kevin, talking about my favorite James Cameron film, The Abyss, which is I know it's on a Friday, which I like to attend that too, because
fantastic film.
That's a film that I feel that's yeah, he's done the Blue People to death, but I think that was his crown. I think that was his opus mammoth, however you call it. That was his crown jewel, because I feel that's his best work, you know. But after that Saturday, that's on the 6th, I got something fun to be doing, which is talking about top 10 favorite monster sound effects. Basically meaning, what is your favorite, minus Godzilla's roar, what is your favorite kaiju or monster roar in all film history? And it doesn't necessarily have to be just Japanese sound effects. It could be anywhere in the world, kaiju sounding effects, whatever, roars that you've heard that holds deep in your mind that you love the most. And hopefully we'll have a couple, but which I do, I will have a couple of people on there. But you're more than welcome to join if you're able to attend to. But after that, another that following Saturday, I think it's that following Saturday, I will be doing, because I had to postpone it till then, I'll be doing my talk on Outland, which is that Sean Connery starred film. And it was supposed to be something that me and Professor were supposed to do recently, but something came up, and it's like, yeah, it's like you can't stop that. So I reset it, and we're going to do that. And other than that, that's pretty much it. That got in on my resume.
Very nice. Yeah, so as you mentioned, coming up later this week, Retro Classic Movie Show and Kevin Lambert's Entertainment Headquarters. We're doing Under Siege, where he and I kind of alternate picks every month, much like we do with Cinemax Synergy. So we'll be doing Under Siege. I chose that one for the Seagull film that I chose this time. Then the following week, after we do Thelma and Louise, I've got action film Autopsy. I'll be hosting it again because Samurai has some things going on, so I'll be hosting it on my channel with Rick Myers, and we'll be talking about some of the films like Mortal Kombat 2 and a range of The Butcher's Blade, stuff like that. So be ready for that. And then later in the week, Neko and I will get to do our top albums of May for rock and metal. And then that Saturday, Kevin is be doing the Hellboy franchise review, so I'll be there for that one as well. And as far as my own stuff, I'm kind of just filling in, so I'll just let people know as I'm going along, because I don't really have a set schedule right now with stuff. I'm just kind of plopping things in there when I can. But again, Jedi, thanks for taking time out to do this with me. It was a blast, and thank you again for the pick. It was nice to check out something new. For the rest of you, let us know your comments in the comment section there. Let us know how you feel with this film. Hit like and subscribe. Please go like and subscribe to Jedi Ground Velle Productions. Good content over there. A lot of night. He picks all these films I haven't seen, so that's always a good thing. Get to check stuff out like that. But again, many thanks, and we'll see you all next time, and enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
Peace.